I know you talk about you have statements about honoring the dead. I have your quote here: honoring our ancestors should be more of a service than unnecessary expectation for breakthrough. Because we don't honor the dead, our cemeteries look like refuse dump. I mean, I guess, what do you say about this?
I think when it comes to religion, Africa, I remember I was in Norway, and as at the time I was there, that was 2008 to 2010, and the churches I used to visit, most of the youth there or the pastors will lament a lot because they are praying for a revival in their country and it's not happening. It's like just 10% of the population is
Okay.
assumed to be Christians. The rest of the youth, they don't care about religion or God or anything. And the point is, it is one of the most peaceful. As at that time, I don't know if things have changed now, but Norway happened to be one of the most peaceful countries in the world, the neatest, the most disciplined, and all that. And yet, here is a place where most of the youth did not even care about God. For them, it was about principles. You wake up in the morning, you know there's what you have to do. You don't even walk about and see somebody eat and drop rubbish on the floor.
Okay.
Like when they are even working with their animals, they have poly bags with them so that when the animal poo-poos on the floor, they actually pick it up,
That's,
wrap it, and when they get to the nearest dustbin, they drop it here.
that's
Now,
good.
here is a country that is a very religious country, so close to God. Yet we have one of the most filthy places around here, and the cemetery is no exception. Because I remember when I visited Europe, you could literally walk through the cemetery because I remember at a point I took on a job at a certain place, and
Okay.
the first time we were going there, the man who was taking me there actually walked me through the cemetery, and at a point I thought it was in the garden, until I started seeing like
The
the
tombs.
graveyard and the names there, And so I remember a few times I'll try to walk through and I'll be so scared. I'm thinking, what if I go to sleep and these white ghosts are scaring me and all that? So I would always walk behind the cemetery until after a very long while, I gathered some courage and I started walking through the cemeteries. And at least for what we see in the movies and all that, I don't know if probably I'm wrong or they show us the wrong thing. Europe has some of the most beautiful cemeteries in the world. And there's one thing that saddens me. Probably the conscious movement in Africa is not so big, or it's because there's corruption in the system, or the system is not really working so well. That's why we can't enforce some things. But a nation that refuses to honor the dead or the ancestors will never know peace, will never see any breakthrough. And it is a fact because the point is, a lot of Christians just, when a relative dies,
Okay.
they just do the 3 days of burial, like the waykeeping, the Saturday burial, Sunday, and then they just take the body to the graveyard, and that's it. For all I know, it's at the 1 year ceremony. Most of these Christians will visit the graveyard, and that's it. For them, they feel they buried the person, and the person is waiting to go to heaven. So it's really irrelevant. And when you go to our cemeteries, they are so filthy. Recently, I was talking to some of my friends that some of us should start putting our voices out there. So maybe we can just have a cemetery day where at least for every family in Ghana, you have one or two people who have died and have been buried in a cemetery. Let people go into the cemetery and let organize general cleanup for us, our cemeteries. We are not honoring the dead. So most of these dead bodies there, those who are into spirituality, like the deeper part and all that, they'll tell you most of these dead people are not at peace. And what we don't realize is that the only thing that separates the spiritual realm from the physical realm is probably your inability to see spiritually.
Okay.
But as we are walking through life all the time, the spirits walk with us. So when we are not, when you look at the Bible, you realize that most of the times for things to happen in the physical, they may have taken place in the spiritual already. For example, for Joseph, you realize that when the famine was going to come into the land,
Uh-huh.
the king dreamt about it and he had to interpret it. And a few years later, it happened. Even for his own life, he dreamt about it. And whatever he dreamt about it, it happened. So the spiritual rules the physical. but we have neglected that part, thinking God is going to rapture people. So in fact, the spiritual realm of Africa, if I should say, is just in a very poor state. And that is what we see in the physical. We have this common slogan in Ghana. I don't know if it's in the Bible, but they say cleanliness is next to godliness. Yet Africa happens to be one of the most filthiest places in the world, probably. So the point is, where is God? If God is Africa, then probably the God of Africa is a very filthy God. So the point is that most of us just bury the dead and we assume that is the end of it. But the point is that there is an aspect of spirituality or African culture where on some specific days, I think there's one called Akwesidai, and yes, the focus of that one was, I think there are two. There's one, maybe the tree scholars, there's a Kudai and Akwesidai, but for one of them, it's assumed the ancestors come home to visit us and food is prepared, you know, and left at vantage point because spirits will come and eat the food. I know the Ghans also have that culture because I live in Accra. They have a traditional food called kokwe, and then they sprinkle it around because it's assumed on that day the spirits come around to visit us, to watch over us. If there's any calamity to befall us, they let us know. So we do all these honoring just so if anything is coming, they can avert all these things for us. But in Christianity, we just bury the dead and then we go back to church and raise up our hands to God, expecting God to do some miracles. And then we wait and wait and no miracles come. And then we are crying, God, why have you forsaken us? Until I left religion, I didn't realize it wasn't God who was forsaking me. It was out of my own ignorance and brainwashing me not knowing what I needed to do in certain circumstances that were resulting in whatever negatives that were happening in my life. So honoring the ancestors is very important in our lives. Traditionally, most people do what we call altars, where they place food and drinks and all that. For some people, they may not do it, but one way or the other in their heart, they're always thinking about their ancestors. Because what I always say is that even if you don't recognize them, there are times you can move in the midst of maybe people who have once known your ancestors, or let's say grandparents, and they can just see some attributes of you. Perhaps you have never even met your grandparents, they died before you were born, and they are like, I can't say where they are, you're not there to say, and then way and I say, and I wait your send papa, or people can just watch you and people can just tell you, you are just behaving like an uncle that has died or something, you know. So to honor them is to recognize the fact that in as much as they are dead, their energy still live on within us, and we can't just sideline that part of us. It will always be a part of us, whether we do it or not. But it is beautiful when you know and you begin to do some of these things, then now you see the ripple effect on your life. But one of the problems I realize is that most of us probably have spent so many years in religion, and then awaken, and then I expect that, okay, I just bought some wine or alcohol or poured some something on the ground. I called upon my ancestors and magic is happening for me. We should understand or recognize that even for some of our ancestors, I remember my grandmother was a priestess of a church, and as far as I know, she died like that as a Christian. So for her, she wasn't even doing these things. So for me to even honor her, it's a gradual process, because she herself, her being when she was in life was not doing this thing. So probably if she's watching me, then whatever I'm doing is even new to her. And it's like I'm now teaching her what she should have done that she didn't know. So it is now she's going to learn from me, and the ripple effect is going to go back through my lineage, through the ancestors. So we shouldn't come into the traditions or spirituality expecting things to just turn around overnight for us. It's gradual. But the most important thing is respect the legacy your ancestors have left down for you. Begin to do the right things, clean when needs to be clean. And when the place is clean, whatever needs to fill in will fill in at the right time. So